the Mexican border. I was only 2 years old when my parents crossed the Rio Grande, and they actually put me in an entire inner tube and swam across the river, each of them holding on to one end. Today, I'm the parent of a toddler, and I think about how seemingly impossible the journey to safety must have been for my parents, and how scary it would have been not knowing who or what would be waiting for you around the next turn. But knowing that turning back would not be an option. How difficult it would be to leave your life, your memories, and your home, and how determined they must have been to protect a new home for us. That's why I work for the ACLU of Minnesota as an organizer, to help make this country not feel like another place they have to flee, but a home where they can feel protected. I work to strengthen communities in southern Minnesota where I teach people to advocate for their rights, letting them know what ICE and police can and cannot do, and help them and encourage them to vote and get involved in politics. I'm proud to work for an organization that's helped marginalized communities over 70 years. And I'm proud to be part of the Sanchez case, to have the opportunity to work with these brave sisters who will tell more of their story in this next video. Please watch. I know you'll be as moved by them as I am.
Al momento que when I went to the room, I didn't have a sweater because they had made me throw it away earlier. And all I had was the linen sheets, and my legs were actually really cold. I was sitting on the floor, and my legs had just a reaction to the cold where I actually couldn't even stand. After that, they put us in immigration vehicles, and they took us to the cells where they were detaining the minors. There were little children in the cages with us, and whenever they would start to cry, the guards would tell us we needed to make them. I would try to take care of them. I would try to encourage them to eat when they didn't want to eat. I would also try to, make them happy, keep their spirits up. We didn't have any brushes, so I would actually brush their hair with plastic forks because that's what we had. We didn't have rubber bands or anything. Brushing our teeth was very difficult because not all of us had toothbrushes and toothpaste. And they never gave us any clothes to change into, and never gave us any undergarments to change into. So we had the same clothes the whole time we were there. Every day we had the same food. We had oatmeal in the morning, we had instant soup for lunch, and we had a burrito for dinner. And if there was any leftover food, we had to compete for the food. They would create games for a competition, and whoever won got the extra food. We were there for a total of 9 days, but those 9 days were actually torture for me. We got on the buses, and everything seemed fine. So we were on the bus, and then we got to the first location, and my sister was told to get off the bus, and my mom called. And so then I let them know, hey, we're sisters, we're supposed to be together, and they said, no, your name is on the list, and you have to stay. No, I was never able to get in contact with her. I wasn't able to see her until yes, just now remembering everything. It's making me cry. I really want to thank you, the ACLU, for everything that you've done for us. And I didn't think that we would come to this country and find the kind of support that we have had in you. I want to be able to share our story with others, and I'm really grateful for showing you that people care about us. Apoyo!
What moved me about getting to work with the Sanchez sisters is how brave they are. They have been able to make a home under extreme uncertainty. They're in high school now and they're working and they're thriving. The courage it takes to stand up and say what the government did to us is wrong cannot be understated. And because of their courage, they're helping protect other children. I'm often touched by the bravery of our clients. When we talk to them, the common thread is that they want to make change. They want to protect the rights of others. We owe a debt of gratitude to them and to all of you for your contributions which make this work possible. We can't do any of this without you. Next, you'll hear about another one of our brave clients. We all remember the George Floyd protests and remember watching the news coverage. But what you may not know is that many of the journalists covering these protests were attacked by police. In spite of this, they kept doing their jobs to ensure we could stay informed. They were then brave enough to sue to uphold further First Amendment. I want to warn you, the video you're about to see is very difficult to watch.
I'm a journalist! Press! Press! I'm press! Okay. I am press. Please.
You see that camera person who just got shot? He clearly has press on his helmet right there.
Glass clearly right here. Guys, are you okay? Okay.
I had my notebook in my hand when state patrol was advancing protest us. We identified ourselves as they fired tear gas cans at behind range.
Press! 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 Authorized to be here. Authorized to be here. I'm here legally. Press! Press!
Good morning. I'm Teresa Nelson, the legal director of the ACLU of Minnesota. After George Floyd was murdered by police, I was monitoring the protests and following journalists on social media. Their posts quickly turned to videos and photos of journalists attacked by law enforcement. I could tell the tide was turning when I saw a photo of a journalist who nearly lost an eye. Our legal and communications teams sprang up into action. We documented numerous attacks on journalists, people who were tear gassed and beaten and arrested even while wearing press passes. With help from attorneys from Frederickson and Byron and Apollo Law, we sued on behalf of first one individual, Jared Goyette, and then a number of other journalists who were attacked. And then police killed Dante Wright, and it started all over again. We saw journalists rounded up, prevented from reporting, attacked. Our team worked into the night with pro bono attorneys again from Frederickson and Apollo Law, and we filed a motion for a temporary restraining order to stop the attacks by the Minnesota State Patrol, and we won. You may have heard about the case. We call it the Goyette case. And I'm so proud to say that we won big reforms from the State Patrol and money for those who were attacked by them. We're still fighting to get justice for those who were hurt by the Minneapolis police and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. I cannot overstate the critical importance of protecting the rights of journalists. You may have heard some variation of the ancient Greek phrase, who watches the watchers? Well, the reason that there's a free press clause in our First Amendment is because our founders knew that a free press was one of the cornerstones of our democratic system. And journalists literally play an essential role in watching and documenting not only protests of police violence, but the way that police respond to those protests. And when police inflict violence on those journalists, they effectively silence that reporting and chill everybody's speech. Being a lawyer for the ACLU is exhausting, it's emotional, it's difficult, and also amazing and fulfilling. When we see injustice, we get to do something about it. When we get to fight for people's civil liberties and protect and expand their rights. And we get to do this thanks to all of you. Together, none of us ever has to be helpless against the government violating our rights. The ACLU of Minnesota has been here for 70 years now, and I'm proud that I've been here for 25 of those years. I've worked on a lot of cases in those 25 years, and some of them that stand out for me the most are cases that you didn't even hear about in the media. One of my first cases was to get the right to vote for people who were civilly committed. We advocated on incarcerated women who did an abortion. We did not have to sue, and we were able to get her the care that she needed. We represented the family of a Native American man who died after being taken into police custody. We obtained money for the children who were left fatherless by his death. We jumped into action to represent protesters who had all of their literature, their signs, their posters, and banners seized on the eve of the RNC convention in 2008. And we exposed the massive racial profiling being done by the DEA at the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. I could go on, but we only have an hour. We've committed to getting you out of here in an hour. So I'm going to wrap it up. And I think now we're going to be showing the video that Dipinder had cued earlier. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Molly Miller-Bonds, Director of Philanthropy here at the ACLU of Minnesota. I have been here since 2006, back when Bush was president, Pluto was named a dwarf planet, and Twitter was first created. And when the ACLU of Minnesota only had 4 staff members. We were small and mighty and full of grit. Now we have grown to over almost 20 staff members, and we have not lost that grit. The growth would have not been possible without everyone in this room and online and a lot of other people. One of the reasons I have stayed at the ACLU of Minnesota for so long is that I get to come to work, whether we're staff of 4 or 20, and help people like you understand how their support can help create the change that they want to see in the world. And as you know, this work is not free. We quite literally could not do it without you, our donors, members, volunteers, and community partners. And there's a reason why we've been around for 70 years, and that's because we have amazing supporters who may not always agree with us, but continue to support and trust us and are proud to be card-carrying members of the ACLU of Minnesota. Supporters that know it isn't just a singular individual, it's about all of us. And one of those supporters I am proud to have worked with for almost 5 years is our union board chair, Larissa Maldonado, who is not only one of our youngest board chairs, she is also our first Latina and first woman of color. Welcome, Maris.
Thank you all so much for being here. For the benefit of everyone in TV land, I want you to know that this room is full. There is so much energy in this room, and I am so impressed, not only because the event started at 8 o'clock in the morning, but because this is what keeps us going. You all, as Molly said, are what drives this organization, and we need each and every one of you, donors, supporters, members, our staff, community members. We have so many partner organizations represented here. We have consulars from Mexico, El Salvador, Ecuador, and Hungary. We have a room full of passionate people here to protect civil liberties and civil rights. I'm honored to call Minnesota home, and I am deeply invested in protecting the rights and liberties we hold sacred and dear. Here at the ACLU of Minnesota, each of us is motivated by our mission to take a stand in the face of civil liberties abuses and fight for everyone's rights. We couldn't achieve this mission. We couldn't defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights without our members, the talent and commitment of our staff, and the support of our generous donors. Since I joined the board in 2016, I have been thankful to have this space to channel my energy in this crucial fight. Even those of us who felt like we were resting peacefully in our bubble have been shook awake by the brutal police violence that our state is now sickeningly known worldwide for. We have to stare at the ugly truths and be present with the gross discrimination and targeting of our immigrant, person of color, and LGBTQ neighbors. And especially as we come up on election season, we have to hold our own feet to the fire, because no one in this state, no one in this country can say that we are not on notice of how bad it can get and how far civil liberties can fall if we are not putting in 110% to protect those rights. I have a trigger warning here for you, because I'm about to talk about something that is deeply personal. Normally a private conversation, but deeply personal decisions have been dragged into the public sphere. I've shared publicly before that I had an abortion when I was 17. Then having that choice was a turning point for me, because that choice empowered me to take control and build a life that I wanted to have, to build the family that I wanted to have, and my beloved children, my rewarding career, and my health and well-being, and my ability to give back to the community and take on leadership positions like this are all thanks to having had that choice. I was gutted by the Dobbs decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, because I know what it is to be faced with an impossible pregnancy, and I know how difficult it already was to find the resources and care that I needed. Here we are in a post-Roe America. A week ago, I was pregnant, and I boarded a flight to Georgia. I began to experience signs of miscarriage later that day, and my first thought was to get to a hospital, but I was in Georgia, where if I was experiencing a miscarriage, my healthcare options would be limited. My doctor couldn't advise me on the best course of action for my care and my health and my well-being, because they would be having to weigh their own professional, personal, and criminal liability before advising on the best course of action for my care. It's post-Roe in the United States of America, in a world where instead of calling 911 and going to the hospital, I called Delta. I knew I had to get home before it got worse. I landed and went straight to the doctor, and in the midst of the pain and the loss and the stress of the entire experience, I couldn't help but be thankful that I made it home to Minnesota, where I could have a full range of options, of choices for my care. My doctor could hold my hand and say, "You have options." I was thankful that I had the resources to jet back to this island of liberty and freedoms, because it's post-Roe in the United States of America, and abortion and maternal health care are only available to people in the right geographic locations, and those are the means to get there. So many women are left with only the most dangerous solutions and abandoned to carry pregnancies with no choice and no bodily autonomy. With the Dobbs decision, the court ignored 50 years of precedent to fall for political whims and in the process degraded the foundation and credibility of the court, showing us that we can no longer rely on the highest court of the land to protect our freedoms and act as a pillar of democracy. The decision lets each state decide what reproductive rights it will offer. Rights begin and end at state lines, as I experienced. Half of all states are expected to ban and severely limit abortion. States should never be allowed to force us to give birth. Those choices belong to us and not to the government. The American Civil Liberties Union and our allies are suing in at least a dozen states to block abortion bans. And I'm terrified about what the court's decision means for so many rights and freedoms that we've fought hard to win. Justice Clarence Thomas readily called for relitigating and upending a range of set precedent that protects our individual rights in his concurrence, stating that in future cases, we should reconsider the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. Justice Clarence declared that the court had a duty to correct the errors of birth control and same-sex marriage. The Dobbs decision was an attack on Americans' personal liberties, an attack on the foundation of families. It does not stop and will not stop with the right to have an abortion. Now, abortion is still legal in Minnesota, and even though we feel like we're protected here and abortion is in our state constitution, it's relatively easy to amend our state constitution. And we're not in a bubble. We are not on an island, and we cannot grow complacent. Our rights are vulnerable in Minnesota as well. It's not just lawmakers in other states who introduce terrible anti-choice bills. There are politicians right here at home in Minnesota poised to take this right away. Every single year at the Capitol, the ACLU of Minnesota and our allies fight off attempts to restrict abortion rights and other civil liberties. In the fight to reproductive freedoms and our precious civil liberties, the ACLU of Minnesota is uniquely poised to engage in all fronts. We fight in the courts, bringing critical impact litigation. We stand up in court for individuals whose rights are violated, including incarcerated people who need abortion care. We fight on the streets, engaging and empowering the community and amplifying voices and educating voters on civil liberties issues at stake in every election. And we fight in the Capitol, where we are ever present to protect civil liberties in the room where it happens. And I can promise you that we will keep fighting each legislative attempt to attack abortion rights and maternal health care rights and the rights of families in this devastating post-Roe America. We need your support. We can't do this without you. We need your energy and your time and your passion and your networks. We need you not just to vote, but we need you to rally support because it's time to take matters into our own hands. We have seen how quickly the tides can turn, and we are responsible for continuing to protect rights in Minnesota. We have to protect our fundamental freedoms and support our neighbors who must now escape to states like ours that still have reproductive rights for now. And we will protect those rights, all of us, together. Thank you.
Putting American citizens into concentration camps on the basis of race is unforgivable.
Unanimous opinion of the Supreme Court said separate educational facilities are inherently unequal.
And that is the right of Richard and Mildred Loving to go to sleep at night, knowing that the sheriff will not be knocking on their door in the privacy of their bedroom.
Fortis declared that neither students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortion.
It's our position that everybody in the village of Skokie and everywhere else in the country has First Amendment rights.
I wanted to tell you what marriage meant to me, why we want it and why we need it.
Not even the government can defeat a community so full of life, color, diversity, and most importantly, love.
How do we speak up? Go. How do we speak up? Go.
And the only way to protect anyone is to protect everyone.
This bill is unconstitutional and violates the fundamental constitutional rights of women in this country.
the amplitude.
One people, one nation. One nation. We rise. We rise. We'll never stop talking about my abortion.
Will we fight? Yes, we will fight.
The ACLU has been at the forefront of virtually every major battle for civil liberties and equal justice in this country for more than a century. And I am here because I owe the ACLU. We all owe the ACLU. I think about my life, I think about my marriage, my family traditions, my ability to go to school, my career, and the diversity of my community. I want you to take a moment to think about just one of the many issues the ACLU leads on. Maybe it's gay marriage, maybe it's the right to vote, maybe it's police brutality. And think about where that issue would be like, where this world would be, where this nation would be without the ACLU. We all owe the ACLU, and we need your support more than ever. I'm happy to announce that a group of our current board members has committed $50,000 today with the hope that you in this room will meet that match and exceed that giving. Any gift given today will qualify for that match. Now, we are a very unique organization. One thing that makes the ACLU so strong is that we are an affiliated organization, meaning we share our funding. We are a united front of over 50 state affiliates, including Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. So your donation today to the ACLU of Minnesota supports the work of the ACLU around this country. Table hosts, will you please take the pledge envelopes out of your packet and pass them around your table? We rely on donors like you because we receive absolutely no government funding, unlike many other nonprofits. Not so at the ACLU. We don't take government money because we sue the government. And 90% of our funding comes from individual donations. So we ask you to give. We ask you to give a gift that is meaningful to you, whatever that amount may be. We truly appreciate it. And for those of you who aren't giving today, there's a pledge line on those envelopes. You can fill out what you are pledging. And remember that $50,000 match from our ACLU Minnesota board members. And I'll give you some time to finish filling out the cards. And when you're finished, please pass your envelopes back to your table host. All right. I also wanted to say a special thank you to the staff of the ACLU of Minnesota. You may have met a few of them already, But if you're a staff member of the ACLU, can you please stand up? That includes ACLU National, if you're here. Thank you, thank you. I'd also like to say a special thank you to John Gordon, our former executive director. Thank you for your stewardship and your tenure. Thank you to our generous sponsors listed on the screen and in your program, and to our table hosts and our volunteers. Thank you to our excellent philanthropy department and team for putting together this event. Thank you all again for joining us this morning and investing in the future protection of civil liberties for all Minnesotans. Please wear your ACLU button when you're out and about today, and remember, vote in November. Your rights depend on it. Thank you.